immediately see. If you get a pop-up in the middle of your screen, just hit it and say okay, so that the pop-up was you've approved that you're going to be able to be recorded. So here we go. So I would like to be the first person to wish all of you a Shana Tova for a beautiful new year of health and happiness. We start in September, pretty much with our programming, and we go September to September. So I always consider this the first program that we begin with. I'm going to also ask you now to mute yourself if you don't mind, so we don't have an interruption. And I'm going to go again and share my screen, and I have something very special, which is appropriate for having two children and two survivors of the Holocaust with us to present today. I've met them about 6 months ago. The ability for them to be resilient, to be persistent, to always strive for being the best they can be, and to bring the best of them to their own communities is something that is just beautiful for me to have witnessed. And so I'm going to start the program with you, Jackie, and Sammy in mind with the following. Sorry, hold on a second. Let me do this one more time. Oops.
Tell me, where can I go? There's no place I can see. Where to go, where to go? Every door is closed for me. To the left, to the right, it's the same in every line. There is nowhere to go, and it's me who should know. Won't you please understand? Now I know where to go, where my folks proudly stand. Let me go, let me go to that precious promised land. No more left, no more right. Lift your head and see the light. I am proud, can't you see? For at last I am free. No more wandering for me. Via it's again. Als vermacht is jeder es ist de Welt groß genug. Nur von der Blick muss zurück, es ist zerschert jeder Blick. Wohin soll ich gehen? Now I know where to go. My folks proudly stand. Let me go to that precious promised land. No more right. Lift your hands, I am proud, can you see? For at last I am free. No more wandering.
Okay, terrific. So I want to ask everyone again to mute yourself so I can make it easier on me. I'm going to be doing that, and I'm going to be introducing our first presenter, Jackie Gamache. Jacqueline Semcha Gamache has spent a lifetime committed to the furtherance of Jewish culture. She's a native of Tunisia. Mrs. Gamache is a curator of several San Diego-based Jewish events, among them the renowned San Diego Jewish Book Fair. After acting as the director of the Initiative of Moral Courage Initiative at SDSU, San Diego State University, she initiated the Middle East, North Africa, USC Shoah Foundation Institute New Collection. Jackie's most recent contribution, which she's working on today, and we'll see much more of that today. We Are the Tree of Life, an initiative and an educational tool. Our mission is to present the arts and the culture that we were created during the Holocaust. She's also the author of a book, From Bomboloni to Bagel, The Story of Two Worlds, and her current novel, Antiphonary of Love. You can pronounce it better than I can, Jackie. The Call of the Scroll. It's available on Amazon. So we want to have a warm welcome to Jackie Gamache, and Jackie's going to start the program a little differently. She's going to have a song for us. So Jackie, please take away. You have the mic, so go ahead.
It's a song, it's a life. Umikayamiz barbakri, tendefli utenshetkli, utradali efturi, umikayamiz barbakri. The love of a mother in Arabic. And my trip was to go to Paris. Oh, je voudrais, tant que tu te souviennes, des jours heureux où nous étions amis. En ce temps-là, la vie était si belle et les chansons.
She muted herself by mistake.
Sorry, Jackie. Can you unmute yourself, Jackie? I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm going to take it in Israel. Avirarim salul kayain verehachoranim nitzaberu harvaim im kol pahamonim ותרדמת אילן בסלע, שבויה בחלומה, העיר אשר בדד יושבת, ובליבה חומה. Then getting married in Paris. Tumbala, 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 laika, tumbala, 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 laika, tumbala, laika, spielbala, laika, tumbala, laika, Freiler soll sein. Born in Tunisia, moving to San Diego in a week. I had to find the help and I had to find the blessings. I will lift up my eyes to the mountains. From where does my help come? And if you know, please join me. Esohenai elehorim me'ayin me'ayin yovo hezri. Shlomo Carlebach. Where did I find my blessing? In Debbie Friedman's, who was a very, very close friend, from the Genesis 12.12. Lechi la to her land and I will show you. Lech lecha to a place you do not know. Lechi la, on your journey I will bless you, and you shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lechi la. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Lynn. I see you singing with me. And you shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lechi la. I'm joining you in 20 seconds.
Very nice. Thank you so much. What a beautiful rendition of song. It is so special. So we're going to now have Jackie present We Are the Tree of Life.
Here, I sang to you what was my life, and you can see very fast how my life is defined through my first names. Jacqueline, Nana, Roni, Jackie, Simcha, and this is when I was the newborn, probably the age of the story that I'm going to share with you, to what San Diego did to me and brought me to a different look, if I can say. My program is, I want to say thank you to the Jewish Culture Holocaust Remembrance, to say thank you to Jeffrey, and to say thank you to each of you for being here. I just thought about bringing Holocaust education with performing arts. And a number of years ago, I just thought about the following word. In those days, music notes were silent. On this day, the music will be heard. In those days, drawings were hidden and invisible. On this day, they will be seen. In those days, literature was voiceless. And on this day, life story, words, and poetry will be read. Born in Tunisia, I wanted to show you, it's part of North Africa, Tunisia, Morocco, Algeria, Libya. And I'm going to bring at the beginning how I was getting through my life experience to go to We Are the Tree of Life. I developed at UCSD, at USC Shoah Foundation. I was the founder of Testimonies from the Middle East and North Africa. And I wanted to, you all know that the meeting and the encounter between Hitler and the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem planning the final solution of the Jews, wherever they were coming from. We didn't really have that. I based my life about who save a life, save the world. That means one life is one life and is the representation of one word. But what happened to the Jews of Tunis was, in fact, that they were taken, most of them, close to 5,000, in fact, to working camp. And this image presents that very clearly. General Rommel was from November 1942 to May 1943. But I am not a scholar, I am not an historian, but from what I have learned, I want to make the point that we had German soldiers. We didn't have SS in Tunisia. An order, an avis, that means was asked for the population to gather together, and that everybody between the age of 17 to 50 will be taken to working camps. And of course, they have to accept that. And if not, the consequences were horrific. I want to tell you one story, which I think illustrates my thinking and my approach to what was the Holocaust between Qatar, in North Africa, in Tunisia, in Tunis, because that's where I was born. And the difference, whatever, of the consequences in Europe. Okay, the red arrow shows you the apartment where I grew up. It's the most recent photograph. And I was 2 years old. I was playing with a nutcracker. You have the image here. I have the real nutcracker in my home here in San Diego. And as the age of 2, as I say, I dropped the nutcracker from the top of the balcony up. What happened here? To the bottom. And when the nutcracker was landing, it landed on the head of a German officer who started immediately bleeding. My grandmother noticed that, and she got so scared that the first action was to say to my mother and my aunt, who were in the apartment, to go in hiding somewhere underneath the bed. And she was expecting, and she saw the German soldier entering the building. Suddenly, knock at the door. She gets scared. She opens the doors, but at the same time, she grabs me, takes me up, and starts slapping me. Violently, I think, hard. And the German officer was saying, please, this is a kid. She didn't do it on purpose. Please stop, begging my mother to stop doing what she was doing just for our own security and own safety. And the man left. And we stay basically in hiding for 3 to 4 weeks. That means the other story that I would like to share, and I am doing all that very fast. If you have any question, you can contact me later. It was a Saturday afternoon, early. My father, who was a very recognized and renowned dentist in Tunisia, went to clean up his office on a Saturday afternoon. And a similar story, knock at the door. He opens thinking that it is my mom, but found himself in front of 2 German soldiers, one of them holding his cheek and saying, oh, yeah, I am in pain. And the other one explaining through an English that my father knew that my father, as a dentist, has to take care of this soldier. And my father say, I'm close today. And one of them takes his gun and put it against his head and says, you are going to take care of my friend. My dad takes the patients, says, sit in the dental chair, observe the tooth, the gums, and knows that the tooth has to be removed. But he's scared and he asks a number of questions, of course, like any doctor will do, and say, tell me about you. And finally, the gentleman say, I am hemophiliac. you are hemophiliac, and the fear enters my dad, who say, I remove the tooth, he's going to bleed, what am I going to do? Out of the blue, the phone rings, it is my grandmother. And my grandmother say, what happened? You look tense, you sound tense, what's happening with you? He say, this is my story as of now. She said, don't worry. I said, Mom, how can I worry? And she said, okay, you know, there's the little alley downstairs. We always had a kind of help with little boys that we, I think, did respect very, 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 very nicely and had very good relationships. Send him to the shuk, take a little bird. He brings you back the little bird, and remove the feather that you have on the leg of the bird, and then take immediately the warm muscle of the bird and place it on the opening of the gum when you remove the tooth. He said, Mom, you know, she said, do what as I said. He did, and that saved his life. The two men left and finally disappeared. And in the same situation, my father had to hide himself a little bit for a number of weeks, not knowing what could be really the consequences of that. This slide is an end because it's out of the time. We were in 1942, and I want to tell you the story to show you the difference between what's happening in a place like Tunis at the same years, where we had a kind of security, but losing one life is the most awful thing that can happen to a Jewish community or to any communities in the world, in fact. This is Marcus, Bronya, the parents of my husband, David GMACH. And this photograph has been taken in 1939. This is the card that Marcus GMACH was allowed to write after being in Drancy. And you can see here where he was. He was the number 3385, totally at the top of the card, chamber 3, stair number 6 in the camp of Drancy. And you can see how the writing is small and the leading is also very tight to be able to tell the life that he was living then. He was taken to Drancy, and he stayed in Drancy. You know, that was the place that I'm sure you all know when they had the Vélodrome d'hiver taken over the Jewish community by the French police. People, the Jews with family and only a suitcase, and their children were sent to Drancy, and many of them were then sent to the Mont Valérien, the image below, where in fact David's father was shot against the wall. To relate a little bit about my life and what I have lived in terms of my Jewish identity, in terms of my Jewish stories. And I got married in 1968. I lived in France for a number of years, and I taught at the école à Berdemin. We are talking a lot about anti-Semitism today. Anti-Semitism, and today I want to talk about anti-Semitism and racism. But on the one day, being a science teacher, I taught physics and chemistry, in fact in my life for 26 years, I entered the classroom of that école Albert Demain, the school Albert Demain, which was a Catholic school and basically run by a clergy. It was having secular programs as well as religious programs. And one day I entered the class. It was the time of the blackboard, and I don't know how you say la craie, but whatever, you know what you were writing with. The chalk, that maybe that. And it was written, Hitler avait raison, mort aux Juifs. I was almost fainting. And immediately, I don't know how I found this reaction, I took a pen and I tapped my desk constantly for 45 minutes. Tapping the desk, I asked one of the students to come. And, you know, a teacher can create trouble to his students. That means it's easy to find a sentence, an approach to an exercise where you know that the student is not going to find the solution. That means the kid was at the blackboard and I was constantly tapping and I didn't say anything. And I say, okay, you don't have the answer, you failed, go back to your seat. And I did that, taking one student after the other. At the end, I asked them to sit down there and to wait. And I went out and I asked the executive director of the secular program, as well as the director of the religious program, to come and meet me in the class. I asked one of the students to read what was on the blackboard. Hitler avait raison, mort aux Juifs. Hitler was right, death to the Jews. And I said, what do we do? The clergyman answered, you know, it's not the fault of the students. I said, no, whose fault is that? He said, it's the fault of their parents and their families. I say, oh, you are aware of what's happening there. He stays silent. And I say, you know what we are going to do? We are going to have once a month a class taught by you and me. You about religion and myself about physics and chemistry. I don't know what it did, what was the impact of this attitude, but whatever. I put this coming in the Coronado Bridge, thinking maybe I can bring a little bit of fun with my experience in San Diego. But you know what? I'm going to pass it. And if you want to hear about it, as Jeffrey very nicely said that I was the founding director of the San Diego Jewish Book Fair. If we feel like it, I will tell you one of the stories of my life with Tova, or with the gentleman in the middle, or with Daniel Delois. That means allow me to skip that. But I'm going to talk about the presence of my Pleyel piano in San Diego. I'm trying to play piano, I'm taking classes, and some of my piano students, friends are here. Thank you for being here. And the story of my piano is the story of a Pleyel. The Pleyel is what we call the Chopin piano, because it was the first time that Chopin asked to have a piano with a metallic structure and not a wood structure. That means my parents left in '67, and this is another story about how they left, but we'll see in the question and answer or another time. And in 1975, they received notification from the Tunisian government that people could come to back to their home and take some of their furniture, of some of the assets. Evidently, the bank account was not available, and the real estate owned by Jews was not available. That means my father selected a number of things. I was with him in my apartment in Tunis, and I said, Dad, I want the piano. And he turns towards the custom officer in control of what the Jew wanted to take out from this place. My father said, we want the piano. And the custom officer said, no, you cannot have the piano. I said, why? He said, because it's a Pleyel. You have to understand, it has to stay in Tunisia. It's an asset for our country. It belongs to us. And my father said, you know, respectfully, yes, it belongs to us. It was in Tunisia, but I bought it as a birthday present for my wife. And in 1936, sir, you cannot have it. Of course, you know, we are Tunisian and Muslim and a Jew, and we argue a little bit. And finally, the guy says, okay, Dr. Nataf, if you show me the invoice, you can have it. And my father said, repeat that. If you show me the invoice, you can have it. And my father said, okay, open his drawer from his desk and take the invoice that I place on this image. And the piano is today in San Diego. And it is not a reward, it is a comfort for me, because it is almost a symbol of understanding. And if we find the element, the fact, which can make things work together, they can work together. And then I am taking you basically just now only to the tree of life. Okay, again, born in Tunisia, grew up in France, love Israel, came to San Diego, tried to settle, tried to work, and the synagogue shooting of the Tree of Life on October 27, 2018. Honestly, I was horrified. I was devastated because the attack against the Jews, I was aware of it. I know it was happening. It happened for this last 2,000 or 5,000 years, in fact. Masada. But to say a young country made of immigrants, 3, 4, not even 5 generations, can get into such a horrific life, horrific situation, the death of people, I couldn't understand. And then I decided to educate my granddaughter, Yvette, who was 10 years old then, and say, I am going to tell her about the Holocaust. I am going to, my daughter, my middle one, the mother, Rebecca, was a little bit against it. But I say, I will take the approach that we need to take for a kid. And we did. And I was explaining that. I was explaining the kids in camps. I was explaining the performing arts, that they were singing, but unfortunately they were killed. And after 10, 15 communications, phone communication, Yvette sent me this image that she drew. Seen by Maurice Sedlin. I don't know if you're familiar, and I hope you are familiar with his work, the Defiant Requiem Foundation. And I say, Yvette, what is that? She said, you see, Mimi, Grandma, you were talking about a tree. A tree, I think, has always very strong, brown, dark roots. If you take care of the tree is going to grow up, have beautiful leaves, beautiful branches, and be brown, and everything will be fine. If you don't take care of the tree, you don't give it enough water. Those are her words, by the way. Not enough water, the branches can break, and the tree is not going to be well. And I say, yeah, I understand that. But Evie, what are those little green circles that you have designed? Ah, Meme.
Picture.
Sorry?
His daughter,
It works or not?
Yes.
granddaughter did it.
Go ahead. Someone, please.
Yeah, my granddaughter did it.
Please.
After those phone conversation, and I say, what is those little circles? She said, Meme, that's what you told me. I say, I told you, I think the leaves of a tree have a shape, but they are not circles. She said, look, Meme, you have to understand. And again, I emphasize that. Basically, I'm sure I am interpreting a little bit, but basically they were her words. And I said, and she said, Meme, you know, sometimes I go to school and somebody bullies me, or I am sad, or something happened. And when I go home, I realize that I have my mom, I have my dad, I have my brother, my sister, and I feel better. I mean, it's like a circle, Mimi. That means when you talk about a circle, you know, it's like things is bad and things is good. And bad. Isn't it what you say that survival is? Isn't it what you say? Isn't it what survival is? I hang up and I say, we are the tree of life. I will say, not all of you know me, but few of people in attendance know me. I always express what I feel intimately. I think part of the success of We Are the Tree of Life initiative and project is the we are. That means as Yvette, my granddaughter, felt part of it, the people I have been working with felt part of it. And through the drawing, the music, the butterflies, the colors, I thought about associating that with the performing arts. Why? Because performing art is, in fact, a message of peace, unity, and love. But also, when you consider the inmate who was in a camp, and I will illustrate that a little bit, who was in a camp, or we was in a ghetto, and using his skills as a performing artist, as musicians, as writers, as a dancer, you can find that skills in you, which brings you the resilience, the courage that were mentioned prior my presentation. And I today transfer it in the same way to the person who is in trouble today, can find these skills in himself, this love inside himself, to find the same peace, unity, and love. And I think those are basically keywords for our world of today, as it was for the world of the past, where we didn't really not perform the way we wanted to. That means we develop a movie with two people, Clint Burkett and Lynn Cabot, a movie of 72 minutes. During the period of COVID, those two people for whom I have the devotion and the respect that you cannot imagine were not Jewish, are not Jewish. And they wanted to get into the project. I assume by compassion for Jewish communities, but at the same time, I assume for a better understanding of themselves. If we have the time at the end, I will show you this trailer. If not, you are going to see. That means what I want to do is education with performing arts. Who helped me to do that? Stephen Smith, Executive Director of the Shoah Foundation, the Defiant Requiem with Mira Sedlin, and Peter Yarrow from Peter, Paul, and Mary. In 2019, the beginning of 2020, before the COVID, I was able to develop this movie within, you know, have
something
all the...
Eva told me about.
Oh.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
she said it's actually on Zoom.
Right, right. How much time do I have, Jeffrey? Do you know?
Just keep going.
Okay, keep going. Okay, that was, and I want to mention two people that or three people that you don't recognize. This is Francesco Lotoro. Francesco Lotoro was born in Italy, lives in Italy, Christian, and at the age, and I think 30 years ago, at the age of 25, he started to understand the experience of the Holocaust and the music of the Holocaust. I mean, he started to search for compositions, scores written during World War II in camp and in ghettos. he found 8,000 musical scores, and he worked all over the world. And today, and kol hakavod lahem or lecha, to the compliment to him, he has the support of the government of Italy to create a cultural center related to the Holocaust. This lady here is the wife of Theodor Bagel. And Theodor Bagel, as you know, survived the Holocaust and sent all our culture through music. And the other lady is Lauren Bernsfather, the executive director of the Holocaust Center of Pittsburgh. Those are images that we took a little bit from the movie to show you. I know that Eileen is in the room, and Eileen is a violinist, many-year violinist of the San Diego Symphony, and she's part of one of the performers in our movie. Again, what is the movie about? And I took just three things: the art, the writing, and this. I'm sure you heard about Elga Vaisova. I know you heard about the visual arts and the work of the kids in Terezin. But I brought this image because when she was 14 years old and entering the Terezin with her dad, at the last minute, her dad said, "Draw what you see." And I thought this is bringing almost transcending reality through some of the work that she did. Like she designed in December 1941, first picture in Terezin. It's two kids, a boy and a girl, with a snowman. Oh, how does that work in the head and the 14 years old? Later on in 1943, she survived Terezin, by the way. She said what she wants is to leave Terezin and to go to Prague and to return to her home. And that's the way, it was her birthday wish, and that's the way she illustrates her work, due to the fact that draw what you see. And that relates to when you send a message to a kid, you never know how he's going to perceive it. And it's with proud honor that I say that we are the tree of life emanated from the creation of a 10-year-old. And this 10-year-old was my granddaughter, as you know. This is another image that I wanted to bring to you. It's Samuel Bach. I don't know if you, this is my favorite artist in the world. And what I think that Samuel Bach, and I will illustrate with one or two sentences through this image, you all recognize the rabbi, right? And the kid shown in most of the Holocaust centers with his hand. And physically is well defined. But next to him, there's somebody similar. You see the hand here? I don't know if you see my cursor, but the hand here and the hand here, which is damaged, which is broken. The face is not identified. That means it can be anyone from the Holocaust, anyone from today, with an unbalanced stone sitting on a big stone, with cracked stone. And what I love in Bach is that he knows how to bring the destruction of the Jewish culture, Jewish history, but still with an implementation that the survival is going to remain and that will be here. I'm going to make you listen to, you all know that. He was in the Vilna ghetto, that's it.
Still, die Nacht ist ausgesternt, der Frost hat stark gebrannt. Sie gedenkst du, wie ich hab dich gelernt. Halten a Speyer in die Hand. Sie gedenkst du, wie ich hab dich gelernt. Halten a Speyer in die Hand.
This is something that you can find the song anywhere. Alexandra Zapruder. Alexandra Zapruder, many years ago, I would say probably 10 or 15 years ago or more, I don't know, wrote a book, Salvage Pages. She was wondering if it was only one diary of Anne Frank, or some of her kids had written diaries during the war when they were in a situation of kind of survival. And she did discover that a number of them did, and she put all of them in a book called Salvage Pages. That means we have stories which have been told. I apologize if I don't let it go all the way. I am from Tunisia, I talk a little bit too much, but whatever. And here it is.
This is a sketch of a teddy bear that my father gave to his brother for his 5th birthday, just as they received their visas. And this is a map of the path my father took to escape Europe, from Antwerp through France to Portugal, and eventually onward to the United States. My father's name was Joseph Strapunski, and this is his journal.
We're doing this Kickstarter project to help preserve hundreds of first-person accounts and diaries and journals in the permanent collection of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. Anne Frank is one of the most well-known Holocaust diarists. Her account of her life in hiding is known worldwide, and she is just one of millions of voices that were silenced. Not all of them are household names, and that's why we're doing this Kickstarter campaign here at the museum.
What's so remarkable about my father's journal is the details that we wouldn't otherwise know. There are moments of everyday life and extraordinary circumstances.
What happened?
I don't know. You stopped.
You are frozen. No?
No, try it again. Just hit the
Okay, hold on.
you see the play sign on the bottom corner?
What? I can get out and get in?
No. Just hit the play on the bottom corner of the very bottom. You see it? Hit that.
That show the
want
challenges
to
and
stop that.
consequences of being refugees.
Stop it.
Yeah, but I don't go to the other one suddenly.
What are you trying to do? Don't just.
I'm going to the next, trying to go to the next slide.
All right, hold on a second. Stop your screen share.
I think it's better if I get out and come back.
Just stop your screen share. I'm gonna.
No,
open
it's on the bottom left corner. There are little 2 arrows. Keep going. All the way to the left, all the way to the left. Right
Left.
there. See, under the word regime.
Yeah.
There are 2 arrows. That's the one.
It's important
Okay.
to preserve these.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. That was Avi, I'm sure. Right?
Yes, it was.
Okay, now another example, and that's how we are doing the dance. I'm sure you recognize Marcel Marceau, you know, the mime that everybody knows, who was in the resistance and at the age of 17 or something like that, 17, 18, and created the art of silence. That means the reason he thought about being a mime and expressing himself without any noise is because he was in the resistance and taking care of little kids. And he wanted to show these kids how to share what they were feeling or to share what they wanted to say, but through sign and remain silent and remain safe. This is Tammuz, who is expressing that. And I'm not doing the full presentation, but some of it. And you will recognize the kids walking on the table or whatever. Okay. I think I presented to you the Tree of Life. We are the Tree of Life. This is Alan Markovitz, who is an IMAX filmmaker, and Clint Burton, who are working very, very closely. and who are helping me tremendously with so many domains. One, the domain of the technology that I don't understand anything about, the domain of how we take my educational tool, we turn it into a number of series. And that's what we did. We have a number of series with the following title: Music Research, Anti-Semitism, Holocaust Survival, and we will get into the YouTube channel very soon. Last year, I was able to present those different events with the support of the GCC, preview of the long movie, the searching for the lost music, Jewish and non-Jewish composer, transcending reality that I show you, and the art of silence. This year, I'm happy to say that the GCC, and it is a community-wide initiative, we are going to have an overdance of the Holocaust with a participation of the attendees, a program on shoes and the Korean documentary, the docuseries, and on the wings of songs. How did all that happen? I want you, I know you are grandparents, I know you are parents. I want you to motivate your children by saying peace, unity, and love and belief are the solution. This is the photograph that I found just recently at the Alliance Israélite Universelle, a school, Jewish school in Tunisia, and this is Madame Saban. Madame Saban was my first teacher, where I jumped from being a tomboy who at the age of 14 could not talk, could not write, didn't want to go to school. And when I met her for the first time, she said, Jacqueline, si tu veux, tu peux. Jacqueline, si tu veux, tu peux. If you want, you can. Please, in the difficult step of education with all your loved one and not your loved one, whatever, teach them, teach yourself. It works. If you want, you can. If we want, we can. These are two images of, I'm sure you all heard about Eva Eger, a family tree, her family tree. And this is a family tree by one of the local artists. And the pieces of paper are pieces of paper from the Mein Kampf book. If you want to reach me, Jackie Gmach, wearethetreeoflife.com. But before you reach me, I want to share something with you because I'm leaving a little change. I think I still have 5-7 minutes, right? I have a close friends, very close friend in Paris, and Annie. Her daughter, Karen, was in Romania. And went in Romania, and she met a family of 3 kids. Pavel, musicians who just had left Ukraine to go to Romania and to secure their life over there. When the daughter of my best friend met them, they said, she called her mom and she said, Mom, I met this family over there. I don't know, it's so sad. They're just escaping from Ukraine. What do we do? And the mother says on the phone, bring them to Paris. I mean, the mother buys plane tickets and take the family to Paris. Put them in a nice studio that she had and take them to join the Purim party last year at the synagogue of Montevideo. And the guest rabbi of the synagogue de la Victoire is the great rabbi of Kiev, and it created another connection. That means my friend Annie is taking care of this family and helping them the way she can. As she has a granddaughter by the name of Fanny Hannah. This is the French girl, the Parisian girl, 13 years old. What's the name of the Ukrainian little girl of 13 who loves to sing? Hannah Fanny. She's 13 years old and she has an operatic voice. one of my relatives is Nathalie Dessay. I don't know if you heard about Nathalie Dessay, but she's one of the top opera singers in the world. She doesn't sing anymore, but she's taking care of Hannah Fanny to make her a success in singing, and how we are bringing that to the world of Ukraine. A few days ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we received a call. And I was in my family room. My husband picked up the call and he said, no. I look at him, I said, what's happening again? No. And he said, you are sleeping in the house. No, you are sleeping at my house. The person who was calling was the grandniece of the person who saved David's life during the war. And she was visiting San Diego with 2 of her children. 14 years old, Tobias, and I told him the story of the tree of life, and he designed this tree on the left. And I said, why do you have a swing? He said, because for liberty. The other one, Cassandra, Tobias and Cassandra Lana, again, they are the children of the grandniece of the person who saved David's life during World War II. I said, why do they have all colors? Why the leaves are not all green? She said, because it's for people, and people have all different colors. And that takes me to the fact that we are the tree of life has, for me, developed in a different way. And I wish I will be successful at that. Again, my Evie, you didn't forget my Evie, right, who designed the tree. She was in my home for the vacation in June, and she drew that. And I said, what is it? She said, a guy. I said, he looks strange. She said, yes, he has good times and bad times. And I said, you know, Evie, I am thinking about Adam. And she said, why are you telling me that, Grandma? And I said, because Adam was the first man in the world, right? The first one, Genesis 1-5. And I explained a little bit to her. And I say, it's with a capital when you name him. When you don't name him, he is with a minuscule. He's a human being. He's one of us. He's mankind. That means he has a responsibility. And she said, why don't we call the painting Adam? It is Adam, Grandma. And I thought to myself, from courage, resilience, and survival, we cannot permit another humanitarian crisis. Enough is enough. We should not limit our challenges. It has to be a together effort, an humanitarian effort, and an humanitarian miracle. Sorry for the accent. If a tree can embrace another tree, oy, Behemet. I know that Sami is going to talk about Behemet. Why a person can embrace another person.
Tree of life, you and I, we are the tree of life. Courage always finds a plan to a whole new circumstance. And would I put out your fire if I saw the chance? Your troubles, can I soften a double truth in front of me? But am I you if you ain't me? And are you sure someone is in your tree? Say, Joy, can you replace the chair while we're just sitting there, too darkened to hear the joke and hardly afloat the gates of hell? When can we fold?
We'll do that another time. Here we have We Are the Tree of Life trailer, which is 2 minutes and something. And here you have my contact. Easy to remember. If you remember Jackie Gmash, we are the Tree of Life. Feel free to call me, to email me, and to... I love to talk on the phone, and I love Zoom. Do I have the time to show the trailer?
No,
2 minutes?
no, we'll do it later.
I didn't do for my 45 minutes, but that's fine. Okay, if it's no, it's no.
We didn't say no yet. We'll do it later.
Okay. Okay, thank you all. Be well, be safe, and let's together, and let's individually, to try to make a better world as per Elie Wiesel. Toda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Thank you. It's beautiful. And we will play.
Thank you.
But a little bit later.
Can Yael say hello to everybody? My singer.
Yes.
Please.
Hi,
Yael, where are
Jackie. Jackie, very interesting talk. I was
Thank you.
very interested to hear all of it. Thank you.
I wanted to introduce you to Yael, but she's probably gone. Yael, are you here?
I'm here. I'm just on the voice.
Okay. This is my Yael, my artist.
Yes.
Oh, nice to
Thank
meet you.
you. Thank you, Sherry.
Good
Yeah.
job, Mom. I love you.
Love you too.
Great job, Jackie.
Jeff, we cannot hear you. You're the only person who cannot be heard.
Okay, there's a really good reason for that. I don't have a voice.
Nothing.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Very
now?
faintly.
All right, there's a real good reason for that. I don't want to get into it, but I lost my voice. So I'm doing my best to have whatever voice that I can use today. So please bear with me. We have a lot of great speakers. I feel honored that I don't have to talk today, but I do want to take a break from something so powerful from Jackie's presentation. And before we get to Sammy's presentation. So I want to have Ava raise their hand so everyone can see you. And I want to tell you, I'm going to share my screen. Ava and I did a keepsake diaries interview. And I want to play it for you. It's only just a short time. It's a very, very important message that Ava is going to bring to us. And I want to encourage all of you, if you have a personal keepsake that means something to you, please contact me. You can contact me in chat. And we want to get your personal keepsake recorded. So listen for this. Hi, everyone. This is Jeffrey Geisner for the Jewish Culture and Holocaust Remembrance Group. I'm here to present the Keepsake Diaries, a new channel for the group. I'm with my really best friend, Ava Maremi, who's been a huge supporter and one of the founding participants in the Jewish Culture and Holocaust Group. And welcome, Ava. I'm so happy to be able to have you as a founding member of the diaries. Keepsake Diaries. And I know you have a couple keepsakes that are really special to you. One of them is looking over your shoulder, which is a Torah. So I'll turn it over to you to have you share what the memories of your Torah keepsake.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you for the introduction and for inviting me. My mother, Elena, or Itza, as she was called by family and friends, together with her parents and her sister, were deported to Auschwitz, also known Auschwitz-Birkenau, the largest of the Nazi concentration and death camps in Poland. It was 1944. In Auschwitz, there was hunger, starvation, death, diseases, and brutality, and my grandparents were immediately sent to the gas chambers. My mother and her sister survived the Holocaust, and they returned to their hometown of Pleshivets. After the war, an elderly, observant Catholic woman, Mrs. Balazs, stopped by to see my mother, carrying a bundle in her arms. I rescued this during the war, she said, and I know that it is sacred to the Jews, and now I want to give it back to you. To my mother's surprise, she unwrapped a few rolled up Torah scrolls and handed them to my mother. She explained that during the war, the synagogue in Pleshivets was ransacked and the Torah scrolls were thrown out on the street. And when nobody was looking, she picked them up. They got dirty, she said, because I picked them up from the street, but I wrapped them and hid them. My mother wanted to know where did she hide the Torah scrolls, and Mrs. Balazs explained that after she wrapped them up, she hid them inside a pile of straw under her pigs in the pigsty. She did not think that anyone would find them there. My mother was very touched receiving the Torah scrolls, thanks to the courage and kindness of this woman. And in return, she gave Mrs. Balazs a few meters of fabric for a dress. The Torah scrolls were carefully wrapped by my mother in a white damask tablecloth and remained with my parents throughout their life. The scrolls even traveled with them from Czechoslovakia to the United States. They consisted of 6 large fragments, each fragment measuring a few feet. And these fragments may have been from 3 different Torahs, but each missing and incomplete. My parents were in their 90s when they passed on the Torah fragments to me, their only child. And today, each of our 3 children have a framed Torah fragment in their home in memory of their grandparents and great-grandparents, to always remember and never let the memory of the Holocaust be erased. These Torah fragments are professionally mounted. They were professionally mounted, and they are housed inside a clear protective acrylic cover, as you can see behind me. We gave one fragment also to my cousin, my aunt's son, my aunt who survived with my mother, and another fragment we donated to our synagogue in memory of my parents with the story. This is a reminder that once there was a Jewish community in Pleshivets. And my husband and I have the remaining Torah fragment. And to me, these Torah fragments are very meaningful because they are a connection to my grandparents whom I never met. Thank you.
Well, it's terrific. So I wanted to ask you, when did you hear that your mother and father had this Torah and brought it to the United States? So when did you learn that it was available?
I always knew that we have a Torah, but I really didn't see it because it was wrapped up. I was a child, and the Torah scrolls were wrapped up in this white damask tablecloth and safely put away in a closet. And the same thing happened after when they emigrated to the United States. My mother just kept it safely in the closet. One day, they invited a friend who was a rabbi, who, with his help, they opened it up and they looked at it. And I did actually the same thing. But so they kept it. The rabbi said that it's in pretty good condition. But my mother wrapped it up again and put it away. This was among the very few things. There was hardly anything that remained from my grandparents. So this was something that connected her back to her hometown and to her parents and to the Jewish community. And when they were ready to move into an assisted living, my father asked me, why don't I take it to my house. So that's when my husband and I brought it to our house, and we kept it wrapped in that white damask tablecloth until a few years later, when we decided we have to do something with it. And now it is in each of our children's homes as well as ours.
Now, did your children know the story of the Torahs as well?
The children know the story, and the children grew up. They were very close to my parents, so they knew many stories of what my parents went through the Holocaust.
Now, you mentioned that I know that you're from Minneapolis, where I spent a good amount of time. Which synagogue in Minneapolis did you donate it to?
We donated it to Darchei Noam, which is a modern Orthodox synagogue in St. Louis Park.
Very nice. Okay. Well, I want to thank you for bringing this tremendously memorable Torah scroll from the Holocaust, which is just beautiful, and your story is also so beautiful. So thank you for participating in the Keepsake Diaries.
And to you, Ava, thank you again. It's a beautiful keepsake story. Again, anybody who has something memorable that they'd like to share with the world, these will be recorded and put on their own channel for everyone to stream. I also want to now transition the program back to our next guest, which is SAMI STEIGMANN. And SAMI has been many things. He's been a victim of the Holocaust. When he was liberated, he became a survivor. Now he's a motivational speaker. SAMI's experience is invaluable. Few people on this earth have gone through the atrocities he has faced when he was just a child, and he was able to transform himself from a victim into a social action agent. Learn about SAMI's story and how he can help you. SAMI is dedicated to reach as many young people as he can nationally and internationally. He promotes tolerance, and hopefully they will make it a better place for our world to live in, our children and their grandchildren. His advice to young people: never give up, never lose hope, and enjoy the life you've been given. Never be a perpetrator. Anyone that hurts another intentionally and repeatedly is a perpetrator, he says. But most importantly, never, ever be a bystander. The greatest tragedy in human history, the Holocaust and all of the genocides, happened because the world stood by and did nothing. By a bystander, you are part of the problem. He wants you to be part of the solution. So I want to welcome SAMI to the program. SAMI, you have the mic, and I'm going to take a minute to prepare your PowerPoint. So hold on a second for me.
Jeff, since the time, is relatively short, so what I want to do is just show only two slides. The first one show the first slide, and the second one is my parents and I when I was a baby. That's it. Okay, the rest of it I will just talk about it. Okay, so first of all, I have a very difficult act to follow after Jackie. I will try to do my best. Number one, I'm a Holocaust survivor, which means I was in one of the three types of camps all of you are familiar with: concentration camps, labor camp, death camps. In 1991, another group of people were recognized as Holocaust survivors, the hidden children. I'm also a child of Holocaust survivors. I am a motivational speaker. I'm also an Israeli, and I served in the Israeli Air Force from 1962 to 1965. As far as I know, I am the only Holocaust survivor that, instead of emphasizing my personal story, which is a personal story as compelling as it may be, my emphasis is to talk about the Holocaust. How did it happen? How is it possible that ordinary people, not only from Germany, but from other countries, from Europe, all over the world, found that not only acceptable, but required to annihilate one group of people, the Jewish people. And it is, so I go through this, everything that started slowly, step by step by step, until it reached a point of no return. I start with the end of World War I, with the Treaty of Versailles, where there were 3 severe punishments against Germany. And because also of the inflation, they lost their national pride. To give an example, and I was very surprised, I just came back from Germany. Germany is the only country in the world, okay, that has taken full responsibility, at the same time teaches in every school and in every class. And I mentioned something that most Americans do not know, but in 1917, $1 American was worth 4 German money. In 1923, at the height of the inflation, $1 American was worth 1 trillion. And I was extremely surprised that they knew about it, because they teach him and all the details of what really happened during that time. Obviously, it started with words and bullying. You can bully a person, you can bully a group of people. Okay, and I also want for the young people to learn from history, because I wanted to be able to recognize the signs of today that can lead to other tragedies, and to know how to combat it. There is a, we all went through to the COVID-19, but there is a virus that is much more dangerous, and that is the virus of bullying, bigotry, anti-Semitism, hatred, racism, and ideology. It cannot be eradicated. It will always be there. It just will take different forms depending on the technology. The only way that they can do it is only through education. And that is my mission in life, is to educate the next generation, to motivate them to be the best that they can be, to empower them to become upstanders. Holocaust and all the tragedies in the world, genocide, have happened because the world stood by and did nothing. And I also want to teach them about tolerance. And tolerance, to me, means to accept other people's opinion, other people's culture. Okay, another word that I use for it is respect. Self-respect, respect for other people. When I'm talking about the history, I also have to mention Joseph Goebbels. Joseph Goebbels, and we have something today, okay, that is extremely dangerous. It's very powerful for good, but it's also a very powerful tool for hate. This is the social media. But Joseph Goebbels said something very interesting. A lie told long enough becomes truth. And there are a lot of people, okay, leaders of our country, celebrities. We have, many people that, young people will follow these celebrities and these people in power. And by using the wrong words, the young people do not do the research. They will repeat it, and that becomes part of the truth. I'll give you 2 examples. Somebody said that there are concentration camps in this country, in the South. It's a complete lie. And I don't want anybody to make comparisons to the past. It's just to learn from it. First of all, it's not a concentration camp because, number one, the people that are in the South, although they live under difficult conditions, have not been deported. Okay, they are taking care as much as they can with food, okay, clothing, medical care, and at the same time, the threat of daily death does not exist. Call it whatever you want, detention camps, whatever, okay, but don't call it, please, concentration camp. That is trivializing, okay, what happened during the Holocaust. Also, when I'm talking about the past, I'm talking about 4 different periods of times. Okay, I'm talking number 1, when Hitler came to power, his initial goal was not to murder the Jews. His initial goal was to have a Germany free of Jews, Judenfrei. Okay, the Germans, I would say, they were geniuses when it came to propaganda. And the Jews, okay, were assimilated, considered themselves Jews, fought for Germany in World War I. They lived there for centuries. Why would they want to leave? That's why they came right now in 1935, they came out with the Nuremberg laws, where they took away their citizenship, basically they put them in ghettos, doctors could not practice medicine, teachers could not teach, children could not go to school, could not participate in sports. So it made it very difficult for them to leave. I mean, quite a number of them left, but where did they go? They went to Europe. Okay, and they started to put them in ghetto, to isolate them, but interestingly enough, they were not violent yet. As a matter of fact, the first concentration camp in Germany, which was Dachau, they did not target the Jews, they targeted the communists. Okay, and it so happened that a lot of the communists were Jewish people. The second event that we have to remember, okay, was the 1938 Kristallnacht. But I want to say something. With the Nuremberg laws, even today, I was surprised, Germans are law-abiding citizens. And in the law, they said, do not associate yourself with your former Jewish friends. And because it was the law, they felt patriotic not to associate themselves. Okay, and they isolated. And as you can see, step by step by step, they made it very difficult. In 1938, in Kristallnacht, after they annexed Austria, that for 2 days, November 9, November 10, they murdered 100 Jews, destroyed over 7,500 synagogues and stores, and put in prison 30,000. The other important date is September 1st, 1939, when they attacked Poland. But unlike Poland, okay, which was occupied, unlike Europe, which was occupied, Poland was annexed and became part of the Greater Germany. And now they did not want any Jews in Germany, and they found in Poland 3.3 million Jews. What do you do with them? And that came, this is the point that I want to make, January 20, 1942. In a city which today is part of Berlin, Wannsee, 15 high-ranking Nazi criminals got together to decide the final solution to the Jewish question, which today we know it as the Holocaust. And they started with Europe. They came up with a list of all of the European countries, 11 million Jews. And this is what something very few people know. Once they were going to accomplish their goal, murdering all the European Jews, they were going to open up a museum in Prague, and they were going to call it the Museum of the Extinct Jewish Race. And this is somebody recently, I don't attack people personally, I don't use names, but you know who I'm talking about. Somebody said that the Holocaust is not about race. And the danger that it's done by celebrities, people in power, by using the wrong words, okay? Young people will not do the research, and they will follow them, and they will repeat it in social media, and that becomes eventually the truth. Another interesting thing that I want to say, among the 15 high-ranking Nazi criminals, there was one particular person that was not part of the decision makers. He was the one that implemented it, and that was Adolf Eichmann. And Adolf Eichmann in 1944, okay, in only 2 months, deported 437,000 Hungarian Jews to their deaths. And I use them as an example of the efficiency of the Nazis and their collaborators to murder 11 million people in such a very short period of time. I also make the connection between the Holocaust and Israel. I found out when I was even in campuses, most of the young people have no spiritual connection to Israel. And I'm saying that during the Holocaust, Jews died because we did not have a country. On Yom HaZikaron, our National Memorial Day, we remember the people that died for us to have a country. And something else that I also talk about, the importance of the state of Israel for the Jews in diaspora. In 2015, because of the rampant violence in France, 8,500 French Jews emigrated to Israel to find a safe haven. There is a lot more that I can talk about it. The time is short. I will allow you to ask questions. But I am also, for instance, I want you to know, I'm also a motivational speaker. I'm talking to the kids about 2 challenges. Not only that, how I overcame it, I don't want them to feel sorry for me, but what I want to do is I want them to learn from me. Under no circumstances should they ever give up, should they ever lose hope. So number one, in 1996, okay, I became homeless. I live today under the poverty line. Okay, I am one of the 40% of New Yorkers that live under the poverty line, 12,000. My monthly income, the official income, is $1,993. And if you know New York, you know, you cannot get away with breakfast for less than $30. But I'm still a very happy person. Whoever knows Hebrew will understand what I'm saying. Sameach b'chalki. I'm very happy with my lot. And the other challenge is I have a son, I have 2 grandchildren, and I'm unable to see them and to be in touch with them. And how do I overcome? As a matter of fact, I mean, Jackie just mentioned the name, Edith Eger. And Edith Eger, coined, something that's called Prisoners of Our Own Mind. I never read her book, The Choice. But when I was in San Diego, I found out that she is in La Jolla. Somebody gave me her book and I want her to autograph me. And eventually the host, arranged for me to be in a panel with her. But I started to use the same thing without reading her book. I started to compare the brain with the computer, and little by little, about 2 years ago, I started, how did I overcome being a prisoner of our own mind? The people that put me in the position of being homeless were personal friends, people that I trusted with my life. And I have many reasons to be bitter, to be angry, to be revengeful. I'm not neither of them. And I did something that 2 things that are happening in this country that I'm unhappy about. Number one, people have forgotten how to disagree in a civil way. And I teach the young people about dialogue, what the dialogue really means. And at the same time is, if you listen, pay attention to the news, nobody, is accountable for anything. Nobody is responsible for anything. It's always somebody else's fault, circumstances. In my particular case, I decided to take responsibility. And I said, you know something? I made 2 mistakes. Number one, I gave them cash. Number two, I did not put anything in writing. So they took advantage of my stupidity, so therefore they are not guilty. And by doing that, all of a sudden, and accepting the past, accepting the fact that I had to forgive myself, I had to be kind to myself, and all of a sudden I became a free man, and I don't need to blame anybody or circumstances, and I am just able to move on. With my grandchildren, all of us have a need. A want, if you fulfill it or not, it's no big deal. It's okay, but a need must be fulfilled. My need is to teach and to share. And when I give a presentation, I speak to the young people, or something right now with you, that gives me the opportunity, okay, to fulfill my need. And when I go to schools, I tell them for the hour or the 2 hours that we are together, whether you know it or not, okay, you become my substitute grandchildren. And that allows me, okay, to move forward. And that's what I want to teach the young people, okay, to learn, okay, not to be stuck in the past. There is nothing you can do about it. It's gone, okay? I made so many mistakes. I call them experiences. I'm a man with a lot of experience. If you'll ask me, I don't even remember most of them, you know? Okay, so you made a mistake, forgive yourself, move forward. There is so much more that I can thank, but the time is short. I am here at the, as you can see, at the Holocaust Museum and Tolerance Center in Glen Cove in Long Island. They have right now the exhibit of 14 portraits of Holocaust survivors. I'm one among them. So I've seen some people are coming to me, you know, asking me to come down. But I'll be with you for probably for another 10, 15 minutes. So if you have any specific questions, okay, and by the way, it can be questions on any subject that you want. If you will go on my website, SAMISpeaks.com, under the press, you will see that I answered questions 2 years ago, and when there was the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, I answered questions for 16 hours straight. You will also see that although I live under the poverty line, I have a foundation under the blog. You will see that in Togo, in Africa, there is a Center for Tolerance that bears my name, SAMI STEIGMANN. I mean, since I started to speak in 2008 for the first time, okay, everything that happened is a miracle. And I want to mention one other thing. When I was in the labor camp with my parents in Ukraine, in an area called Transnistria, I was subjected to medical experiments, and a German woman saved my life. Obviously, the doctors did not come to my parents. Okay, they did not know, I did not know. But when I applied for the compensation, okay, I received in 2004, I received 2,500 euros. Okay, but it's not the amount of money, it's a recognition, okay, that they admitted that Nazis, okay, medical experiments were done not only in Germany. The reason that we were deported by the Romanians is because on June 22nd, 1941, when the Wehrmacht attacked former Soviet Union, behind them were the special killing groups called Einsatzgruppen, and behind them were the Romanians. And they annexed Transnistria, Bukovina, Bessarabia. I was born in Czernowitz, Bukovina, and that became part of the Greater Romania, and that's why we were deported by the Romanians and not by the Germans. My father being born in Romania proper, in 1946, the Romanian government allowed a small group of Jews to repatriate, and my father decided to choose the lesser of two evils, and we went back to a small town in Transylvania, and that's where he grew up until 1961, when the whole family finally After 12 years, got the visa to go to Israel. And in 1968, I came to the United States by myself, without money, without the language. And here I am today. So thank you all. Okay, there is so much more, but if you, when you will go to my website, additionally, except on the mobile, you will also be able to download my whole presentation. As a matter of fact, I believe I'm the only one that gives away the presentation to the students before I give my presentation. I want them to know the basics. I want them to have it, okay, so they can learn later on to remember what it is, talk to their parents, to the teachers, whatever it is. And when I have questions, when it comes to Q&A, I expect from them to ask me probing, challenging questions.
Okay.
Thank you for listening, and I'm very honored to be here. Very honored to be with Jackie, obviously with Jeff. Okay. So anybody has any questions?
Hold on a second, Sammy. I want to bring everyone back in to the.
Pardon me?
Hold on a minute, please.
Yes.
Okay, I want to have anybody who has a question, and we have Jackie.
They can also put it in the chat, and then it's easy for me to see it.
All right, well, you can do that as well, but I can't see it. So is anybody, okay, Avi, go ahead, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Sure. Beautiful presentations as always.
It's a short one because I just wanted to respect, the time limit that we have.
And maybe Jeffrey should consider, having each of these sessions be one presentation instead of two. That way we can get into depth for each one. But my question to both you and Jackie, and one of the things I've been encountering a lot as I do my work in this particular field, is how do we make the Holocaust more relevant for those who are not connected to it like we are? You, obviously, Sammy and Jackie, both of you, as I'm a child of Holocaust survivors. My father was in Auschwitz, my mother was in the DP camps. We come to this very personally. How do you make it relevant for someone other than telling the story? Because the stories are magnificent, but an urban African-American kid who lives in Overtown, Miami, he'll listen to your story, but it has no relevance.
It's not about the Holocaust. It's a personal story.
I understand, but even so, it's not relevant to them.
Right.
How do we make it relevant? That is the real,
Well,
challenge.
very good. The one way is the way Jackie does it, okay, through art, okay, in different ways. What I do, for instance, is when I go to them, is I have decided to talk about the evolution, because it's extremely difficult to understand. How is it possible that ordinary people found it necessary, required to annihilate one group of people? It's difficult to understand. And by learning from history, by going with them step by step by step, how they isolated them, how they portrayed the Jews as rats, explaining to them why they portrayed the Jews as rats, not a different animal. In all of these little things, going step by step, how they isolated them and everything else, they can relate to it. And by learning from history, they can learn how to combat what's happening today. By the way, I don't like the word anti-Semitism, okay, because there are three groups of, one second. There are three groups of people that are Semites, the Jews, Arabs, and Ethiopians. When you use the word anti-Semite, it's actually against Jews. So therefore, my preference is to use the word anti-Jewish, anti-Jew. It's against Israel. But who lives in Israel? Jews. Okay, they don't call it, even when they go against the Jews, they don't call them, we are against Israelis, we are against the Jews. So anti-Jews would be, in my opinion, the proper word to use, and we have to use the proper words and to be very, very specific. Jackie. Yes, Jack.
Yes. It's a very, very, very difficult question. Okay, I think the first thing that I will think about is to create an evaluation of what we have done. And I have presented that fact many years ago at an international conference at USC. And I ask the attendants, I say, we have to evaluate because, and I apologize for my words, but I feel them, we have failed. I have failed. We were not, by bringing the history of the Holocaust, able to create, again, they are not my words, the words of Elie Wiesel, to create a better world. That means, one is to do an evaluation of what all those institutions have done and see how we can adjust them. Two, for me, it's by taking the situation of today in a very, very approfondi, in a very, French avis, in a very deep learning, in an approfondi, go deep on it and say, I love the Shoah Foundation, I work for the Shoah Foundation, we have all those testimonies. How do we gather them, perhaps per subject, per geography, per whatever, per age, to take it? And after that, it's probably to see the fusion in the Jewish culture of some other cultures, of Jewish education in some other cultures. And I think it's something very, very important to bring the Jew. I totally agree with the Semites aspect, and you are absolutely correct, but to bring the identity of the Jew with some other identities. And maybe one of my next point is ridiculous. It's how can we do that as educators and eliminated all the politics around that? Okay, Jews and Arabs, following, and I let you do that. Jews and Arabs live forever for 2,000 years. Okay, in Tunisia, in Tunis. Okay, we had some programs, we had something, but we were able to do it. What makes us today in a difficult situation where we cannot perform it as well as we would like to? Yes, Avi.
Before I leave, I'm sorry I have to leave because they're constantly coming bothering me, but I want just to say something. I am planting a seed. Yeah, I will not see it in my lifetime, but hopefully maybe it will be accomplished, okay, throughout many decades. Now, just like on Passover, we sit at the table with friends, with children. We read the story of the Exodus. We have debates, okay, commentaries about each passage that we read about it. And we have to feel that we were actually liberated from slavery. In Hebrew, Mitzrayim has two meanings. Number one, it's, the land, Egypt, but it's also spiritual. It's Meitzar. Every word has a root. The word Meitzar is constraint. So we also are liberated from the internal constraints that we are putting on ourselves. But what I want to do as a Yom HaShoah, to have something similar to the Haggadah in every language, in every country, to sit at the table with family, with the children, talk about the Holocaust, have commentaries, and feel that all of us have been liberated, okay, from the Holocaust. So it's a seed. A lot of people will have to be involved. Obviously, I will not see it in my lifetime, but all of you can plant the seed also. Like you said, life, the tree of life. Okay, so each one of you can spread the word and everything else, and hopefully something will happen. So I'm very sorry that I have to leave. They keep bugging me. Okay, they keep, but Jeff will be very happy to give you my website, okay, the PowerPoint, and also my telephone number, my email, anything that you need. And if you want to know more information, you want to bring me to wherever you live, to your school, campuses, or whatever, synagogues, Chabad, I would be very, very honored. That is basically my life. Okay, that is
Thank you,
my
Sammy.
life. Thank you all. God
Avi?
bless. Thank you, Jeff.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Avi, you wanted to say something? After that, I saw Mr. Newhouse.
I want to take a second.
Yeah, Mark wants to say something.
For me?
I do. I was a classroom teacher for 32 years. I also taught college. I remember a very interesting incident. My wife is not Jewish, and my father-in-law, they're from England, and they survived the Blitz in England. And one day, my father, who was a very difficult human being, decided to get into a big argument with my father-in-law. And the argument was basically that nobody suffered like the Jews. When we play victims and we say that nobody else suffered, we don't get people to listen to us. It's fine for us to talk about the Holocaust here in isolation. But as a classroom teacher with very limited time, how do you teach about the Holocaust? Well, you teach about it as genocide, as hate, as bullying, and you don't isolate the Jew, but you explain how you compare this to all the other genocides that have taken place and are taking place. One of the biggest mistakes I think we make as teachers is we give token recognition. Give you a simple example, and I won't take long. My mother hated Mother's Day. Absolutely hated it. She hated the idea that one day a year she was taken out with everybody else, and she would see all these old ladies in wheelchairs and on walkers. And she would say to me, Mark, she'd always call me Moxla. She'd say, Moxla, every day is Mother's Day. In other words, what really effect are we having with Black History Month or with Women's History Month? Okay, the fact of the matter is, it's fine for us here to focus on the Holocaust because we're the choir. But if we want to preach to outside the choir, we have to find the universal themes, the universal thread that makes it relevant to every group, not just to Jews.
Avi?
Yeah, so I of course agree with you, Mark. The problem, once again, when you speak to people in terms of genocide, Armenian genocide, North Korean genocide, Syrian genocide, the people we're talking to, the students you were talking to, are not necessarily Armenians and they're not necessarily Syrians, but they are Black. So why not talk about the Black soldiers who liberated the concentration camps? They're Catholic. Why not talk about the Catholics who were rounded up, as Sammy said, the first camp in Dachau rounded up most of the Catholic bishops because they disagreed with Hitler and the Nazi regime, and they were rounded up and sent to Dachau, and many of them were killed. How many Catholics were murdered? How many gays were killed in the Holocaust? How many disabled were killed? How many dissenters were? We have to start teaching the Holocaust in ways that they can relate to.
I totally agree with you.
Because they cannot relate to the Jews if they're not Jewish, and they can't really relate to the Armenian genocide if they're not Armenian. And so unless we start finding ways to relate to their personal, individual belief systems, relevance to them, then it's just a historical lesson like any other history. There was a world war. There were two
You
world
said
wars.
you said the key word, Avi, which is historical. The minute you say historical, even the schools themselves place less relevance on history than they do on math and on science.
Right.
In elementary school, every kid pulled out for math remediation or any remediation came out of social studies classes or science classes. And I will tell you something, you hit it right on the head. If you teach it as a historical event with no relevance to what's going on today and to all the groups today, you're teaching the wind. I agree with you 100%.
I want, if I can share something with you, as part of We Are the Tree of Life, I didn't mention it. I am going to develop a San Diego City concert with the chamber group very well known in San Diego. And what we are going to do, we are going to have a chamber music coming from the life of Olivier Messiaen. And Olivier Messiaen was a Christian who was in a German camp in Poland and composed, when he was in this camp, what we call the Quartet de la Fin des Temps, that means the Quatuor of the End of Times, where there's an implication of the Christ. That means this is the Christian man who is suffering like a Jew next door could suffer like him. And the other part will be that at the same time, when Olivier Messiaen was in this camp, okay, he was not aware of what was happening in Assisi, one city of Italy, where the clergy was saving the life of the Jews. That means here it's bringing through We Are the Tree of Life and through a Christian devoted to his Christianity, the story of the Holocaust. Now, the other point that I was making, which is taking me out of the Holocaust, how do we teach the students of today? I have been in education for 63 years. I taught different fields, but let me share with you a funny story. Born in Tunisia, I was very family oriented. Every Saturday, Sunday, we were 45 aunts and uncles and grandparents. That means the family concept is very important to me. I moved to San Diego. My kids went to college at the age of 17. My Bronia came when she was 12. She left at 17 and boom, whatever. Mother's Day. The gentleman was talking about Mother's Day, right? I take my phone and I found a bouquet of flowers and say, Happy Mother's Day, Mom. A message on my phone. I couldn't swallow it. See, I cannot believe that. That's the way she tells me Happy Mother's Day. I mean, I pick up the phone and I say, Hello, Bronia. Yes, Mom, how are you? I say, oh, hold on. Somebody is at the door. And I will illustrate why I'm saying this story. Somebody is at the door. And she said, be careful, you don't have anybody coming to your house, which is true. And I said, no, don't worry. And I come back to her, pick up the phone and say, Bronia, thank you for the flowers. She said, which flowers? I said, I don't know, I just got a box with beautiful flowers and your name. She said, Mom, I didn't send you flowers. Oh, I see what you are saying. It's not true. I said, no, of course it's not true. And she said, I'm sorry, ma'am. She's answered, I am sorry, ma'am. From that day, every Mother's Day, every birthday, I have flowers coming through the mail to me. Why I'm living that? Because we have to find a way to educate and to transmit our message of peace, of unity, of love, of no anymore genocide, no anymore humanitarian harm within the modern appeal. And we are doing it when we are doing Zoom. But how do we take that to a point that not only the young or 5 years old, but the adult, or as the little tree that I showed before, any person of any color, of any religion, can try to understand it. We have to change our way of working. This is my point.
Can I tell a fast story?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Jeff is the boss, but I know that he cannot talk that stories.
Very fast. All right. When I first started teaching, I was teaching in Brownsville, New York, which was a Black ghetto area. And I was living in Whitestone, Queens. Anyway, I was taking over for a teacher, and he would do a spelling test. And the way he would do the spelling test was he would give the students the letters scrambled up. And so the first time I did this test, the letters were A, T, R, and S. And the clue was something you see at night. Well, I took home all the spelling tests and I marked every single one of them wrong because they wrote rats and I wrote star.
Right.
If you think about that little lesson that I learned very fast, it explains to one of the most important things, I think, which is we can't teach them as if we are the same as they are. In fact, just the idea of they is wrong. Okay, so we have to change our perspective.
Exactly.
I learned very, very quickly through some very interesting lessons that the group I was teaching was very different than me. Does that mean we can't reach them? No, we can reach them. But how do we reach them? What do they listen to? When I talked about the Holocaust, I included with other genocides, including what happened to the Blacks, to the Native Americans, to the Irish in this country, okay, and to other things. But I also showed why the Holocaust was unique. One of our speakers today talked about the fact that 11 million people were killed within a very short period of time. It never happened before. 11 million people were killed in what, about 6 years?
Well, 52 million if you include all the soldiers.
As a Holocaust.
Of course, that's the kind of fact that kids are, they can't believe that. See, that's not something in the past. If you teach about it within a context and then show what makes it unique, then the students understand it. The problem is we're still teaching it, and I'm not knocking Anne Frank's diary, don't misunderstand me. But it's like one of my son said to me the other day, okay, they're required to teach To Kill a Mockingbird. And a lot of schools are now saying, no, we don't want To Kill a Mockingbird. These are the classics as we judge them. Anne Frank is a wonderful book, but to force every Black child to read it in a certain grade level, or every Hispanic child to read it, can they relate to it? Will they relate to it? Are there other ways of doing this? And that's what we have to explore.
We have to find them. That's the point.
That's right.
We have,
That's
okay,
right.
as we are the tree of life, I want to jump from, not to jump from, but to bring the Holocaust into the humanitarian crisis. As I show you, the Adam. Adam was our big boss, right? After God. God was the first boss. He was the assistant of the boss. And finally, what are the world that we are in? That means we have to evaluate. We have to evaluate at the beginning. We have to evaluate. We have a product, you know, and I'm sure the people who are in the business, they have a soap and they say, okay, this is the soap that I am going to sell, but in 2 years I have to put more almond whatever in it, or more ingredient with it. That means, and this is a common effort from everybody, and it's not going to be easy anyway. Whatever.
So I'd like to end our program, and I'm going to turn it back to Jackie for everyone to see her trailer. So Jackie, why don't you share?
Would you like to see it, or do you have enough, guys? It's already 2 hours. I don't know. Well, you know, let's put it this way. My name is Jackie GMACH. Just write that. At We Are the Tree of Life. One if you want my book, which is a novel about love, I will mail it to you. It's not for sale because it talks about love. It's available. And JackieGMACH@hotmail.com. Send me an email. I will send you the link of I think I'm sure that people are done.
Put it in the chat.
What do you want me to put in the chat?
Your email and your website. That way everybody can.
Oh, yeah. Jackie.
Right.
I'm going to make a spelling mistakes, as I know me.
Please don't. Take your time. Great. Thank you, Jeff, very much for doing this.
We are the tree of.
And
correct?
I'm sure we'll talk soon.
And
Yep. Beautiful. Great.
Okay.
It's so small. And it's not fun to be old.
I have to go.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Avi. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Jackie. We'll talk soon. Zoom. Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
You.
Mark, send me your email. I want to ask you something.
Sure, I'll send
Is that
it to
too
you
late?
right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.